Crump, lead analyst with Storage Switzerland. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about cybersecurity and how you can use artificial intelligence to help stop and at least identify some of the threats that you're facing. Joining me on the whiteboard to talk about that is Chris Bontempo. He's with IBM. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, George. So I'm Chris Bontempo. I lead marketing and offerings for IBM Security in North America. And what we're going to talk about today is how IBM Security, throughout our portfolio, we're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to help address some of the threats we're seeing from a lot of the bad actors out there.
Well, and I know that basically Watson works its way into that conversation as well, right? So talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so we're more than a decade into Watson at IBM, the Watson era, so to speak. And we are definitely using all of the different capabilities of IBM Watson to work into our security portfolio to protect our customers.
And something that came up earlier that I think really should be clarified is Watson is not this one little magic black box sitting in somewhere in a data center. It's really a technology that's available in multiple places, right?
Right. Watson is now a technology capability that is deployed across multiple clouds. With our acquisition of Red Hat, we've now containerized Watson so that it can be available via the Red Hat OpenShift architecture on the IBM cloud, but also the Amazon Web Services cloud, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, or you can deploy it on-prem, or you can just purchase Watson services from us as we deliver Watson capabilities via software as a service model.
Great. Okay, well, why don't you take us through what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so we'll start with some basics of cybersecurity. So on this side, you've got your user. Just put a nice smiley face there. Your user is usually trying to access something via a device. So here's an endpoint. And then that user has an identity. So you have to verify the identity of the user. That user is trying to get over a network. So you've got your network here. What's that user trying to do? They're trying to get access to an application. So there's your app. And once you get access to the application, you're almost always going after some data, right? Because we live in a data-fueled world. Yep. Data is the critical piece of all this that fuels the application that delivers the service to the end user over here. Hopefully the end user is happy. So this is what we would call our digital trust part of the infrastructure across the board. And so this part's critical. And we apply AI throughout this stack to make sure that you are who you say you are when we're trying to verify your identity. We use it to identify anomalous network traffic that might be coming through. We use it, artificial intelligence, to make sure that that app delivers a great service to you as it learns who you are and learns your capabilities. The apps adapt. And then we also use artificial intelligence on the data side to protect the data that you're trying to access.
So this is more than just sort of building a big wall around the whole thing. You've got essentially abilities embedded throughout each of these layers.
Yeah, so this layered architecture is what we in security would call a defense in depth approach.
Okay.
So you've got to protect across the endpoint, the identity and access management, the network, the application, and your data. You've got to have security controls and protocols in place across the entire stack. And what that means in a world where AI is becoming more prevalent is you need to sprinkle AI and machine learning throughout this stack to protect it.
And I again, when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned and I'll let you give me the number because I'll mess it up, but just an incredible number of threats that your customers or you're helping your customers through every day, right?
Right. So IBM Security is, across software and services, probably the largest enterprise security provider in the world. We have 18,000 customers across the globe. And so we're seeing and managing for those 18,000 customers 70 billion security events every day. So the volume is staggering, and the only way that you can keep up with that volume while facing a skills gap of almost 2 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs by 2022 is to apply artificial intelligence and other technologies to close that gap.
Well, and even if we had all those positions, just a human, obviously that's spread across 18,000 customers, and my math isn't good enough to figure out how much that is per customer, but one human can't identify all that
No.
Because I'm assuming there's also, during this process, there's a lot of, I guess what we call like false positives too, right?
Exactly. So let's talk about the bad actor over here. We'll put a little frown on him.
Okay.
And then over here on this side, we've got what we would call the threat management side of things. So you know this bad actor is going to try and get through your infrastructure to get to your data. And so on this side, you have to have what we would call this is your SOC, your Security Operations Center. And in your SOC, you have the brains and analytics of your security team. Okay, so you've got a trained team sitting in the SOC. They're looking at screens. They've got hands on keyboards, and they're trying to identify everything that's happening across this spectrum. And so the key to the SOC these days, with 70 billion security events that we're facing across our customer base, is how can we apply artificial intelligence in the SOC to make the life of that analyst easier, to help them identify an attack quicker and get to instant response and remediation and fixing things that much more quickly.
So it really AI's role isn't necessarily to replace the guy in the SOC, it's to help that person drill into the legitimate attacks that they need to really pay attention to.
Exactly. We will never replace the analyst in the SOC. You've got tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 trained analysts, and we need their judgment to make sure we are taking the right actions. But we also, because of the speed question, they need to get to action that much more quickly. So we need to supplement their expertise with the artificial intelligence capabilities.
Well, and I would assume not only open positions, but just the skill, the need to keep evolving the skill capabilities here has to increase, because these guys aren't sitting. They're also taking advantage of the same technology we have, AI,
right,
to get better at their quote-unquote jobs, right?
Exactly. So the bad actors also have access to artificial intelligence and machine learning tools and capabilities, and they are using them to mutate their attack tools, viruses, malware, phishing attacks. That all gets supplemented on their side by AI and machine learning as well. So it's a cat and mouse game between the bad actor and the team in the SOC and the security professionals across the digital trust spectrum. And the only way we believe that the threat management and digital trust teams will stay ahead of the bad actors is through the application of AI across the stack.
And I think you mentioned something really important earlier, is that it's not a matter of if they're going to get through. They're going to get through. So identifying a successful breach is critical, right?
Yes. So we used to think of security as a castles and walls kind of architecture, where if you built a high enough or strong enough wall, you could keep the bad actors out. We now go more to a immune system approach, right, where we believe and we know the bad actors are in your infrastructure. They're probing around. They will always, they will find vulnerabilities and they will enter your infrastructure. And so the key is, how quickly can you identify that they're there, and how quickly can you stop them from advancing their attacks and start fixing things.
So, and then from a storage guy's perspective, I think the important thing here as we get into the data stuff is we need to have really good encryption down here. And then we also talk a lot about an air gap, making sure that the data is physically, in a worst case scenario where all of this doesn't work, you want to make sure you have all this protected somewhere so you can recover from the worst case scenario, right?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So there is a whole field of data security and data protection that is critical to the success of the enterprise. What you have to do on the data side is identify where your crown jewel data is. What's your most valuable data? Where is it? Where is it located? And then what are you doing to protect it is part B. So what encryption models do you have running on them on top of that data to protect it? So if somebody gets access to it, they can't use it. And then who has access to the data and what are they doing with it? So connecting up with the identity and access management team is critical as well. And then the last key is just integration of your data architecture with your threat management architecture. So you need to feed all that data on who has access to the data, what they're doing with it, into your security team and the threat management portfolio, so they can identify when data starts moving to places where it shouldn't.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the things I'd like to get your opinion on this is that we've been talking to people a lot is lowering your attack surface. The tendency today in IT is just to keep everything online and in production. And we all know that most of that data isn't needed today. And so if we can get it off, not necessarily offline, but at least a step behind this, that you minimize the stuff that the guy can go get, right?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing at IBM is knowing the time value of your data and getting rid of the data that whose useful life has expired. You can get rid of that stuff, but you also have to retain in long-term retention scenarios the critical data that's going to be really important to your customers and your success of your business over decades.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was thinking in some of the recent ransomware attacks, you're paying, if you end up paying the ransom, you're paying for stuff that you weren't even accessing anyways. And it just seems like a real odd sense of irony.
Right. So what we find is most of our clients are still struggling to understand their data architecture.
Yeah.
There's always going to be an opportunity for us to go in and talk to customers about improving their data architecture, where their crown jewels are, discovery, classification, and then making sure you've got the right data stored on the right system for the right kind of access.
And I'm assuming AI technologies like Watson can help with that as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just like we're building AI into the security portfolio, other business units at IBM are using AI capabilities in all the different management products that we offer, especially storage management.
Great. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
Well, there you have it. If you're looking to really address your security issues, is building this sort of multi-layered approach is the right way to do it. Also paying attention to data and understanding your data profiles will really reduce your attack surface. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Crump, lead analyst with Storage Switzerland.